stop this wedding.
Papa, you can't.
I told you she was not worthy.
Subscribe for more videos. Turn on notifications.
Mama Tobi, the woman who had washed Chike Okafor's shirts for 19 quiet years. On a humid afternoon in Lekki, 22-year-old Chike Okafor threw a glass of red wine across the linen tablecloth at his fiancée Adaeze and told her that if she ever embarrassed him in public again, he would return her to her mother like a broken kettle. She wiped her face with the back of her hand. Her mother stood in the kitchen doorway and watched. She did not speak. She had been silent for 19 years. Chief Obinna Okafor sat at the head of a 12-seat teak dining table, watching his only son drink his third glass of brandy. The Okafor Group was a name whispered in every boardroom from Victoria Island to Abuja, and lately, even in London. But none of that mattered to him tonight. What mattered was that Chike had turned 22 and still behaved like a boy who had never been told no in his life. Today, that silence is about to cost the Okafor family everything they thought they owned. "Sit down," Chief said. Chike sat. "Mrs. Adaeze brought her daughter to our house last weekend," Chief said. "You told her you were not interested. You told the Adaeze daughter you were not interested. Last month, you told Madam Ike you would prefer to marry your tailor's daughter before any of them. So tell me, son, which daughter do you want?" Chike laughed. "Pick one for me, any one, as long as she knows how to keep quiet when I am speaking." Chief leaned forward. "Then I have chosen for you. You will court Adaeze, the daughter of Mama Tobi, our housekeeper. She is finishing her degree in accounting. She speaks 3 languages. She does not drink, does not lie, does not chase after money. You will marry her, or you will receive nothing from me. Not the company, not the Lagos house, not a single share." Chike laughed louder. Then he saw his father's eyes, and the laughter died. He agreed. Lolo Uju, Chike's mother, was not told the plan until the betrothal letter had already been drafted. She read it 3 times, then threw it into the fire. "Have you lost your mind?" she asked her husband. "The girl is our house girl. Her mother boils our rice. You want me to call her my daughter?" Chief answered calmly, "I want my son to marry a woman who will not collapse the moment life pushes her. I want a daughter-in-law who understands work, and I want Lolo Uju's son to learn the difference between a woman and a label." Lolo Uju left the room without another word. From that night, she began to treat Adaeze like furniture. If Adaeze sat on the sofa, she was told to sit on the stool. If Adaeze ate, she was told to eat after the guests. If Adaeze spoke in a conversation, Lolo Uju would look at her, then deliberately turn her back. Sometimes she would send Chike to repeat in front of everyone, "My mother says your mother must not be seen at my engagement party." Adaeze always smiled and said, "It is well." Mama Tobi would watch from the kitchen with her hands soaked in soap water and say nothing. She had promised Chief 19 years ago that she would serve this family with her soul, and she would not break that promise, not even when it broke something inside her. The party planner had spent 8 million naira on the Okafor engagement. White lilies, a 6-piece live band, 200 guests. The governor was supposed to attend. So were 3 serving senators and the wife of a former minister. Adaeze wore an Agbada-inspired gown in cream and gold. It had been sewn by a designer Mama Tobi had paid for with her own savings, because Chief, on the day of purchase, had quietly slipped her the money and told her, "Make her shine. Tonight is her night. But Chike did not want her to shine. He wanted her to know her place. It began with the seating. Chike seated Adaeze at a side table near the kitchen door. When she quietly moved her name card to the main table, he pulled it back and placed it again at the side table. In front of 200 people, in front of cameras that were streaming the event, he leaned down and said, "Stay where your mother belongs. You are here because I have chosen you. Do not forget that." Adaeze nodded. She walked to the side table and sat. Then the cake cutting. The MC had told Chike to feed Adaeze a small piece, the way tradition demanded. Chike cut a piece. Then he dropped it on the floor. "Accident," he said, grinning to his friends. The hall went silent for half a second. Then the band kicked back in. Lolo Uju clapped. That was when Nene stood up. Nene was a young lawyer, a guest of Chief's oldest business partner. She had come quietly, in a green dress, sitting in the third row. She had not planned to speak. But she stood up, walked to the center of the hall, and said into the microphone, "Mr. Chike Okafor, you have just dropped your bride's cake on the floor in front of 200 guests. You have seated her at the servants' table. You have pointed at the kitchen door to remind her that her mother is a housekeeper. My name is Nene. I am 24 years old. I watched this whole thing. And I want you to know, this is not entertainment. This is humiliation. And everything that happens in this hall tonight is going to be on the internet by morning." By morning, the clip had crossed 2 million views. By afternoon, it was on 3 national morning shows. By evening, the hashtag Adaeze deserves better was trending above the name of the sitting president. The Okafor Group's PR team called an emergency meeting. Lolo Uju, in a panic, screamed at her husband, "This is your fault. You chose the girl. Now fix it." Chief said, "I will not fix what my son broke. He will fix it himself." Chike refused. "I will not apologize to a girl I am about to marry. She should apologize to me for embarrassing me in front of my guests." And so, that Sunday morning, in the family's private chapel, with a hired camera and a script written by the PR team, Mama Tobi and Adaeze were forced to stand and read a tearful apology. "We are sorry for the misunderstanding at the engagement. The Okafor family has been kind to us. We will continue to support their good name." Mama Tobi could barely read. Her voice cracked twice. Adaeze read with dry eyes. The video was posted with the title, "Reconciliation at the Okafor House." It went viral for a different reason. Netizens said, this was not reconciliation. This was captivity. Within 72 hours, the clip had crossed 30 million views, and 3 human rights attorneys had offered to represent Adaeze and her mother free of charge. In a quiet bungalow in Banana Island, a 71-year-old man named Chief Ikong Adeyemi watched that clip on his 3rd cup of cocoa. He was a former minister of finance. He owned 3 banks, 2 airlines, and a foundation that awarded scholarships to more than 4,000 students a year. He had watched the clip 3 times before he noticed something. The older woman, her right hand, a small, faded scar above her knuckle. Chief Ekong lowered his cup violently. "Adeola," he said. He had not spoken that name in 33 years. He had not spoken it because the last time he had, the woman who carried it had been told, falsely, by his own mother, that he was dead. She had vanished. He had searched. He had hired men. He had moved provinces. He had never found her. Until this clip. He made 4 phone calls that morning. The first was to his driver. "Get the plane ready. We are flying to Lagos." The second was to his lawyer. "Pull every record of Mama Tobi Okafor, where she lives, who her daughter is, where she works." The third was to a private investigator. "I want a full background on Chief Obina Okafor and his son by tonight." The fourth was to his daughter, Amara, in London. "Ada, sit down. I need to tell you a story about a woman named Adaeze and a baby girl who was never told she had a father." 3 days later, on a Wednesday morning, a black Rolls-Royce pulled into the Okafor compound. Chike Okafor stepped out with 2 lawyers, a court clerk, and a paramedic carrying a sealed medical file. He did not greet anyone at the gate. He walked into the sitting room where Chief Obina was having his morning tea. "Good morning, Obina," Chike Okafor said. Chief Obina looked up. They had not seen each other in 26 years. They had been friends at the university, then business partners, then rivals. "Ikong," Chief said slowly, "what brings you to my house?" "Your housekeeper," Chief Okafor said. "The woman called Mama Tobi. Her real name is Adaeze, and she is my wife. Not in paperwork, in spirit. And Adaeze, your future daughter-in-law, is my daughter. I have the DNA report to prove it. Now, may I see her?" Chief Obina dropped his teacup. Lolo Uju, who had been listening from the staircase, fainted onto the marble floor. They brought Mama Tobi into the room. Her hands were still wet from the morning's laundry. Chike Okafor saw her, and for the first time in 33 years, allowed himself to weep in front of strangers. "Adaeze," he said, "look at me." Mama Tobi looked up. Her lips trembled. Then she said a single word. "Namdi," using the only name she had ever loved. They did not embrace at first. They just stood 2 meters apart, looking at each other. The lawyers looked at their shoes. The court clerk looked at the ceiling. The paramedic looked at his file. Then Mama Tobi walked forward, and Chike Okafor held her like a man who had just been given back a part of his own body. "Lolo Uju," he said, still holding Mama Tobi. "The nation watched your family force this woman and her daughter to apologize on camera for being humiliated in public. That apology is reversed. The next time a clip from this house touches the internet, it will be your son on his knees." He turned to Chike, who had just walked into the room, still sleepy, holding his phone. "Young man, you dropped your bride's cake on the floor. You seated her at the servants' table. You told her mother to stay in the kitchen at her own engagement. Tell me, in your own words, what kind of man does that?" Chike had no words. "Then let me tell you. A spoiled one. And the world has no place for spoiled men. From this morning, your father is releasing no shares to your name, no cars to your name, no apartment to your name. You will live on a salary you earn with your own hands. If you ever stand before my daughter again, you will come with clean hands, an empty wallet, and a heart that knows how to apologize." It took Chike 6 months to find himself. He moved out of the family house into a small flat in Yaba. Lolo Uju cried on the phone every night. He did not pick up. He took a sales job at a Lagos-based logistics startup. His friends stopped calling. He ate alone. He paid his rent on time, for the first time in his life, with money he had worked for. On the 7th month, he walked back into the Okafor compound to see his father. He did not ask for anything. He sat he apologized. He named, by himself, every cruel thing he had said to Adaeze. He named every time he had called her mother's name as a curse. Chief said, "Then what will you do now?" Chike said, "I will court her again, from the beginning, not as Chief Okafor's son, as Chike." 2 weeks later, with the permission of Chief Ekong and Mama Tobi, Chike visited Adaeze at the small flat she now shared with her mother. He brought no gift. He brought no driver. He brought only himself. "Adaeze," he said, "I owe you an apology that 9 videos could not carry. I owe your mother, who kept my family clean for 19 years, the dignity she was denied in front of 200 guests. I owe my own soul the chance to be better than I was. If you can find any room in your heart to forgive me, I will spend the rest of my life earning it. If you cannot, I will walk out of this door, and I will not bother you again." Adaeze was quiet for a long time. Mama Tobi came out from the kitchen drying her hands. "Girl," Mama Tobi said, "your father, your real father, the one God has now given back to us, will be here in 2 hours. Whatever you decide, decide it with your own mind, not because of his money, not because of his name. Decide it because of the kind of peace you want for the rest of your life." She paused, looking out the window at the mango tree her mother had planted the day they moved in. "My father left when I was 6 months old. Or that is what my mother told me. She told me he died in a car crash in Port Harcourt. She told me his people chased her out of their house before my first birthday. She told me never to ask questions. I am 22 years old, Chike. I have spent 22 years carrying a name my father never gave me. So before I decide, I want you to understand something. Marriage is not a verdict. It is not a trophy. It is not a settlement. It is a daily choice to stand beside another human being when the cameras are off, when the money is small, when the in-laws are difficult, when the children are sick. And the man who dropped my cake on the floor in front of 200 people has to prove to me, slowly, with no shortcuts, that he has learned that. She took a breath. I will give you 1 year. 1 year to show me, with your actions, that you have changed. At the end of that year, if you are still the man who dropped cake on the floor and seated me at the servants' table, then I will let you go, and I will not look back. But if you are a new man, I will receive you. Because the same God who hid my father from me for 33 years is the same God who hid the good in you from me for 22. Chike nodded. He stood. He did not beg. He quietly walked out, closed the gate behind him, and began the year. 11 months later, on a Saturday morning, Chike walked into the small flat for the final time. He was wearing a gray shirt he had bought on his second salary. His shoes were not polished. He had nothing in his hands. Adaeze opened the door. Behind her, Mama Tobi was laying the table for breakfast, and Chief Ekong was reading a newspaper in the corner, pretending not to listen. The 12 months are up tomorrow, Chike said softly. I have not come to ask. I have come to report. I want you to know everything, Adaeze. Every small thing that changed in me this year, so you have the full picture and not just my word. He sat at the kitchen stool, the same stool Lolo Uju had once told her to sit on. In January, I earned my first commission, 60,000 naira. I sent 30,000 to a fund my mother never told me about, the education fund she had been quietly keeping for my younger cousin who died last year. I did it because my cousin believed in me, and I did not deserve his belief, but I could honor his memory. In February, I visited your mother's older sister in Abeokuta, the one who works at the granite market. I carried her basket of stones for 6 hours. I did not tell my mother. I did not take a photo. I went because your mother raised a woman like you, and the women who raised her deserve to be honored even when no one is filming. In March, I sat in the passenger seat of a Bolt from Yaba to Adaeze, and the driver was the same driver who had taken you and your mother to the Okafor compound the morning of the engagement. He did not recognize me. I sat quietly. I tipped him 3,000 naira. I did not speak on the phone the whole ride, because I was thinking of the ride where Adaeze had to sit alone at the back while I sat in front with my mother, telling her she was not good enough for me. Adaeze covered her mouth with her hand. In April, I went to my father and I returned every car key, every apartment key, every share certificate. I said, I do not want any of it until I have earned it. My mother screamed. My father said nothing. He nodded one time. In May, I called Lolo Uju and I told her, Mother, I am sorry for every curse I ever placed on this house. I am sorry for the way I allowed you to treat Adaeze. I am sorry for the way I treated you, because you are also a woman, and I treated you as if you were an extension of my father's wallet. We spoke for 4 hours. We did not reach peace. But we stopped calling each other names. In June, I paid a lawyer to write a letter to the Okafor Group's PR team, formally withdrawing the forced apology video. The video was not deleted, but it was officially disowned. Mama Tobi and Adaeze did not author it, and the house would no longer pretend they did. In July, I began attending an accountability class at my church every Thursday for 2 hours, with 11 other young men who had also lived on their father's money. My teacher is a retired prison warden. He does not flatter. In August, I went to Chief Ekong's office in Victoria Island. I did not bring a gift. I asked for permission to one day, when I have earned it, knock on his door and ask for Adaeze's hand. He asked me 3 questions. What do you have? What did you break? What will you build? I answered honestly. I said, I have nothing yet. I broke almost every woman I touched this year with my past. I will build Adaeze's trust, brick by brick, until she holds the door open herself. He paused for a long time. Then he said, When you are ready, come back. If you are not ready, do not come back. And that was the last sentence he has spoken to me since. In September, I bought a used Peugeot, and I drove myself from Yaba to the mechanic on 3rd Mainland Bridge at 5 in the morning to fix the gear. I held grease in my hands for 2 hours. I smelled like engine oil at work. My colleagues did not mock me. 4 of them asked where I got the car. In October, I gave my first salary, the whole sum, to a young girl in Surulere whose father had died. I had seen her hawking plantain chips on the road. I had been the kind of boy who would have driven past. Now I am the kind of man who stops. In November, I went home to my father. We ate amala together. I did not bring a question. I just sat. He did the same. We ate in silence for 40 minutes. At the end, he said, Son, this is the meal I have been waiting to eat with you for 15 years. The meal where I do not have to remind you that you are not above your own food. He looked at Adaeze. In December, which was last month, I called your mother. I said, Mama Tobi, I am not asking for forgiveness. I am asking to sit at your table once, without cameras, without my mother, without my father, without a single name in my mouth except yours. She said, come tomorrow at 7 in the morning. I came. I sat. She served me pap and akara. She did not say a word the whole morning. When I left, I heard her say through the kitchen door, God, do not let this boy go back. He has just begun. Chike paused. He did not look away from Adaeze. Tomorrow is the last day of my 12 months. I cannot promise I will be perfect. I cannot promise I will be rich. I cannot promise that my mother will ever love you as her own. All I can promise is this. I have spent 1 year becoming the man who should have stood beside you at that engagement. And if you decide that this year is not enough, I will walk away with my hands clean and my heart open, and I will never come back to ask again. Adaeze looked at her mother. Mama Tobi was sitting at the kitchen stool, the same stool Lolo Uju had told her to sit on for 2 years, and tears were running down her face. Mama Tobi said quietly in Yoruba, Aba ari, aori. If we have seen it, we have not finished seeing it. Adaeze stood up. She walked to the door of the small flat. She opened the latch. She turned back to Chike. Come back tomorrow at 6 in the morning, she said. Bring no gift, bring no driver. Bring your own 2 hands. We will eat breakfast together, and after that, we will know. That night, Chike walked into the small flat for the last time at sunrise. He was dressed simply. Mama Tobi opened the door, took his shoes from him, and told him to sit at the head of the small table. He refused. He sat at the side stool. Adaeze brought the food. They ate. No one spoke. After the meal, Adaeze folded her hands on the table. Chike, you may speak to my father now. The second wedding was small. 40 guests. No live band, no 6 million naira flowers. It was held in the courtyard of Mama Tobi's new home, a 4-bedroom bungalow Chief Ekong had bought and titled in her name. Chief Okafor attended. He cried twice, but said he was cutting onions. Lolo Uju was not invited. Chike wore a simple agbada. Adaeze wore cream. Mama Tobi wore gold. Chief Ekong walked her daughter down the aisle, and when he placed her hand in Chike's, he leaned close and said, Treat her like the queen your mother refused to make her. Chike nodded. He did not need to say a word. He had already begun to become it. After the wedding, Mama Tobi stood at the gate of her new home and looked up at the night sky. She had spent 19 years inside the Okafor gate. Today, for the first time, the gate belonged to her. Chief Ekong came and stood beside her. He did not touch her. He just stood. Adiola, he said. I have a question. She did not look at him. She smiled. Ask it. Will you give me the remaining years of your life? Not as my housekeeper, not as the mother of my child, but as the woman I searched for 33 years. She turned to him. She was 60. He was 71. They had spent 33 years apart, deceived by the woman who should have protected them both. I have already given you my youth, Namdi. God kept me alive for this. So yes, I will give you the remaining years. He slipped a small ring on her right hand, the hand that had been soaked in soap water for 19 years, the hand with the tiny scar on the knuckle that he had recognized on a viral clip. She did not cry. She just put the ring inside her blouse pocket and walked back into the house, very quietly, because that was how she had always walked inside the Okafor house. Now, 1 year later, on a Wednesday morning, Mama Tobi and Chief Ekong held a small naming ceremony for their grandchild at the compound in Banana Island. Chief Obina attended. Lola Uju did not, but she had posted a long congratulatory message on the family WhatsApp group, and Adaeze had replied simply, "Thank you, Ma." Chike, who now worked as a regional sales lead in the same logistics company, sat on a stool in the courtyard, nursing his 1-year-old daughter and bouncing her gently on his knee. Adaeze walked up to him with a glass of water. "You know," she said, "my father told me something this morning." "What did he say?" Chike asked, still holding the baby. "He said the same thing your father told him 26 years ago. Money is not a man. Family name is not a man. A man is the way he treats the smallest person in his house when no camera is rolling. And you, Chike, my husband, have begun to learn that." He looked at her. He looked at the baby. He looked at the courtyard. The mango tree that Mama Tobi had planted the day they moved in had grown tall enough to throw a wide shade over the entire compound. She took the glass from his hand and sat beside him on the stool. "Husband," she said quietly, "we are not at the end of this story. We are at the beginning of the second half. I will fight with you. I will forgive you. I will cry about your mother for the rest of my life. But I will not let you forget the day you dropped my cake on the floor, because that day made you. And I want us to remember every birthday, every anniversary, every quiet Sunday morning, that the man sitting at the head of this small family was the boy who lost everything and earned it back, one morning at a time." He smiled. He kissed the baby's forehead. "Money is not a man. Family name is not a man. A man is the way he treats the smallest person in his house when no camera is rolling." And that, my dear listeners, is the lesson the Okafor family learned the loudest on the night a quiet guest stood up at an engagement party, opened her mouth, and let the truth of this house breathe.